do, and they're going to be honest. And I can know there's a couple obvious ones, and I see Mike Gill. We could pop Kelsey's, Lane's, Brandon Graham, Fletcher Cox, AJ Brown. Tremendously honest. That ain't Jalen. So I don't take anything seriously when they're 10-1 from Jalen Hurts, and I don't take anything seriously when they lost 3 games with Jalen.
All right, Mike Gill joins us. He's getting in the best broadcast position. All right, so I'm going to ask you to follow up on you were listening to the conversation that John and I were having here. John just said you don't get much from Jalen Hurts at any point, so I take everything he says with a grain of salt. But he said in good times and in bad. When were the times ever this bad?
2021, I would say 2-5.
It's a good question.
But there's no expectation. That's the
right
for him
with expectations attached to it.
Yeah.
Right.
But
exactly. First year here, we didn't play at all. I mean, yeah, there would be none. I mean, last year, they didn't have essentially this team had no problems at all last year. They had no injury issues. They had no inner conflicts. There was no problems. They didn't lose a game followed by another loss. I mean, they lost a game that Washington game, but then that quickly went away. They lost 2 games with Minshew, so that kind of gets thrown out. No, they didn't really have any stretch of, which is almost unprecedented. I mean, even the 49ers this year, they lost 3 games in a row. No one seems to have a problem with that. I know they had some injuries, but, oh my God, they lost 3 games in a row, and the sky didn't fall down on them. But you also didn't have this kind of situation going on. I definitely think it's a little different what's going on here. But no, Hurts did not have a moment. And I would say I tend to agree a little bit with what Jody's saying is the first time we saw him actually slip up. Like the standard is the standard. It is what it is. And he says everything almost where you don't even feel like asking him anything because you know what you're getting.
Yeah.
And for him to finally kind of give you a crack inside of there might be something that finally has broken me in this place. It was a little eye-opening, I thought.
Yeah, I took it the exact opposite way of what you were just saying, Mike. It's, you don't get anything from the guy to the point where, it becomes a chore to ask a question. And then it became, because remember, if the follow-up, he reverts, I don't have a dictionary on me, whatever he said.
Well, don't you take that as his moment of, I just said something I really didn't want to say, and now I just want to get out of this mess.
Yes.
I took it as his moment of I'm doing my usual bullshit. Let's move on. That's how I take it. But I don't think
he tried to turn it into that. I think that was his way of diverting attention. It's like the meme with the guy in the fire going back into.
Well, then I'll ask it. So I'll ask it to you guys since you've taken it in a different way than me. So what could he have been meaning? Is he saying that the offense, everybody is not committed with them, the coaching staff? What is he trying to say?
I would imagine so. I mean, that this whole thing is interesting to me because he's the guy to me who is different, right? You keep saying, what's different about this offense? You got the same receivers, you got the same offensive line, you have one different running back and one different right guard. Why is everything so different? Well, you can say the play caller is different. Okay. But he's the guy running the offense, and he's different. And we want to keep tiptoeing around the fact that he's not the same guy. He's not. He's not bad, but he's not great. And I think we don't want to acknowledge that he's not great because we want him to be great. But he hasn't been great. You're not getting a $250 million ROI right now. Why is that? Now, Barrett Brooks used to tell me a story when John Gruden was the coordinator here. He played for John. And Bobby Hoying was the quarterback. And he said, John Gruden told Bobby Hoying every play where to throw the ball. He said, here's the play, throw it to this guy, he'll be open. Then Dana Bible took over and didn't tell him where to throw the ball. And guess what? Bobby Hoying sucked. Yeah. He wasn't any good. Yeah. I'm not suggesting that Shane Steichen was telling Hurts what to do with the ball every play, but maybe he had some input on where the ball should go, and maybe Brian Johnson's not giving him the same input. That would be a scary proposition.
And here's a weird thing, and I can almost guarantee you I wasn't thinking alongside the same thing as Jalen. Because when he said it, the first thing I did was, what do I think he means by that? So I reverted to what I would think he means by that, not me trying to figure out what he's saying, what I thought it meant. And you know what it was for me? Tackling. They tackled like crap the other night. That you talk about being competitive and committed. Tackling is being committed. Getting guys to the ground is being committed. I thought he went to the other side of the ball, was looking at his defense going 92 yards, 8 plays, under 2 minutes. That's not committed. It probably wasn't. I'm not suggesting I can get inside Jalen's head, but that's the first thing I thought of. They weren't committed to getting guys on the ground, and that cost them the game against Seattle.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily buying that from the perspective of we'll use Sidney Brown because he was the biggest example of missed tackles, I would say, during the game. He's committed enough to get to the position to make the tackle, but then he's not committed enough to make the tackle. That's about technique and fundamentals.
Just getting there isn't enough, John. The goal is to get the guy to the ground.
Obviously,
if you sprint there quickly and get there looking good, doesn't mean diddly squat if you can't get the guy to the ground.
But that's not my point. Tackling is about technique and fundamentals, which Mike and I were talking about this on his show yesterday, which I said, show me a good tackler in college football. I'm sure there's some, I'm sure there's a few, but it's not really very good at the college level. You and I talked about that yesterday, Jody. And when I was talking about Sidney Brown, you have to pretty much learn it now on the professional level. And the only way you can learn it is with live reps. And the only live reps you get in the modern NFL is in real games because they don't tackle in practice. So it becomes this situation where guys get better as they continue to play. And that's been my whole argument with Sidney Brown. If you played him earlier, he'd be better now. No guarantee, but that's what I think would have happened and what I think will eventually happen. But when you're questioning somebody's commitment, that's all I'm saying. I'm not, yes, obviously the goal is to get the guy on the ground. I'm saying if you're committed enough to get in a position to get the guy on the ground, something else is going on. You don't have the technique and fundamentals to finish the play. That's not commitment to me. He's just got to learn that part of the game because they don't tackle in college. And they don't tackle in practice.
No, Michael Parsons was a pretty good tackler in college. There are some guys that show you.
I said there's a few, but it's bad. I mean, you guys are college football fans. You know, tackling's pretty bad on Saturdays generally, in a general sense. Would you guys disagree with that?
Oh no! Listen, I mean, it's all the way down to you can't practice anywhere. I mean, you can't have any contact in the sport except for on the game day. So it's hard to perform when you can't do what you have to do on game day, Monday through Saturday, to get ready for the game. You're just assuming, hey, we hope that you're going to be able to complete the play once the play happens. But do you guys look at this situation at all where you had Press Taylor with Wentz, and they were more
buddy that comp a lot, yeah,
right. I mean, that he's not, that he's just not like, because to me, there's so many examples we keep seeing of plays that are there. We heard Orlovsky say he's passing up on plays that are open for waiting for plays that are not open. So is he being told, go for the big play, is that being drilled in your head? Much like when these quarterbacks are told you can't run, you can't run, you can't run, you get that drilled in your head and then you just stop doing it. So is he being drilled, don't take the 10-yard open play, wait for the 25-yard pass down the field because you got A.J. Brown and he'll make the play for you?
Yeah, is he being told that, or is Jalen just going there on his own? Because yesterday, A.J. Brown.
That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, A.J. Brown came out yesterday and was a little perturbed with people suggesting that his relationship with Jaylen is the reason that Jaylen is forcing the ball long to him. that's just not the case, that he is a decoy from time to time. The play that went down to him, that was the number one option. Well, that's play calling. Then that's on Brian Johnson. If that particular play, the number one play call, the number one read is AJ 25 or 30 yards downfield, that's just dumb. If AJ's telling the truth and he was the number one option, then that's on the play caller. And I'm not giving Jalen a pass here, because you got to realize what's better, forcing the ball into a covered guy 25 yards down the field, or getting into a wide open Devontae Smith who's 12 yards down the field, and that's all you need to get into field goal range to tie the game. Jalen's got to be smarter than that. He's got to move past, well, the number one option on this play is AJ downfield. He's just got to throw it to the guy that's open. But shame on Brian Johnson if that was his call, that the number one play was to throw it to a covered, and I know he wasn't covered when the play started, but Jalen's got to see he's got some pretty good coverage on the play to force the ball to A.J. Brown. That's on the offense coordinator for me.
And it's not only that play. I mean, we're starting to see more and more now. Last week we had talked about it. Well, you could pick out any 3 plays, but you're starting to be able to pick out more than 3 plays where this guy's running wide open in the middle of the field and he's going down the field. So I don't know. Maybe that's just the way they're practicing this offense. I don't know what that has to do with his commitment, because that would say, well, we're committed to doing the wrong thing, essentially.
Yeah.
But maybe he's suggesting, hey, we have commitment problems. We're committing to the wrong thing with this offense. We need to get back to just, making it get the ball to the playmakers. But there's a lot of this going on in the league right now. The league can't score. A lot of these teams are running this college spread offense.
Teams can.
I was going to say that San Francisco team is not trouble scoring these days.
But what's the difference in their offense? They're not running this college spread offense that the defenses have now built.
They caught up a little bit. Yeah.
Right. The defenses over the last couple of years have started to get personnel to match. You're going to spread us out. We're going to go get defenders that match that. Well, now San Francisco says, you got that small defense, and we'll go get and run a West Coast 90s style offense. Good luck. So the teams that have kind of transformed their offensive thinking, Dallas does it. They've switched essentially. San Francisco is another one. I think you look at the Rams. It's another team that's kind of switched a little bit. Their offense is starting to take off a bit, and the defense has matchup problems with those teams. Now, they have good players, don't get me wrong, but so do the Eagles. We brought this up during the 49ers game. Do the Eagles have any worse personnel on offense than San Francisco does? I mean, you might prefer a Deebo Samuel type of receiver over an A.J. Brown. Are you going to tell me that he's definitively better? That's asinine. I mean, are you going to tell me Brandon Ayuk is definitively better than Devonta Smith? No. Kittle and Goddard, you might like Kittle a little bit better, but is it definitive? You like the Eagles' offensive line better than the San Francisco offensive line. How is that offense that much better? Well, they have much better play calling and design. So I think it kind of tells you the root of some of the problems here.
Yeah. Well, and by the way, you're talking about the players, but I think we're burying the lead in this situation. I argued, if Nick Serianni, I was watching a Netflix spy documentary, and I was thinking to myself, if Nick Serianni was a double agent and purposefully wanted to ruin this week for the Philadelphia Eagles, he couldn't have done a better job. Could not have done a better job. How he handled that situation. Embarrassing. You can't go strong enough to the adjectives. It was interesting because, Mike, you brought up the 49ers. They lost 3 straight games. And I think everybody defaults to Trent Williams being hurt, Christian McCaffrey being it was Christian, right? Who was hurt? No, it was Debo. So it was Trent Williams, Trent and Debo being hurt. They were also struggling a little bit defensively. And Steve Wilkes was starting to get some criticism because D'Amico was there. They were tremendously successful with D'Amico. So they were getting some of the same questions. What's wrong with the defense? What's wrong with the defense? Kyle Shanahan didn't blow out Steve Wilkes. And that's not even going to how we handled this situation and the competitive advantage nonsense. How'd that work out? You couldn't have handled it worse. Does this alarm you at all with the head coach of this football team? Because when you have these moments of adversity, which the Eagles, as you mentioned, really haven't had since their 2-5 start, to me, you got to handle it like Kyle Shanahan, with a steady hand and say, yeah, we'll get back. We'll get back. We're a good team. It'll be fine. And here they are. The Eagles are running around like they're, heads on fire. Just, it's a bad look. It's bad optics. Now, maybe that doesn't matter, but it can't help. Or can it?
The only other example that I think we've come up with is that Baltimore team. They made a change at offensive coordinator at 9-4. By the way, they lost 4 out of their last 5 games that season, and then they won the Super Bowl. Don't know that that's the best formula to do it. Change your coordinator, lose 4 out of 5, enter the playoffs, and then win a Super Bowl championship. But that would be the only thing that I can think of, as you mentioned, something being handled I don't even know how they handled it back then. It was 2012. So you're going over 10 years ago. But as you mentioned, this thing has been handled to just a complete debauchery the way that happened. And then, you said pretty steadfast yesterday, John, on my show that you do believe this was Serianni's call. I'm not saying that you're wrong. I'm just, that there are people out there that question that.
Oh, yeah, and rightfully so. I understand why people question it.
Right. By proxy, you have a disaster because there are people who will not now they think, and as you said, if Serianni in fact made the decision, which no reason to believe he didn't, if you're saying he did, well, then he flat out lied to people for days. Saying
lost his credibility. He made the change on Tuesday, according to the players out in Seattle. And that means he either lied to people 3 times or 2 times, best case scenario, if you're claiming he didn't make the decision when he talked to us on video conference, but he did. So that means he lied to us 3 times. He sent Sean Desai out there as a lame duck to pretend it was business as usual. This is not leadership.
Yeah, how'd that conversation go?
Yeah, well, he said he wasn't happy, but he took it like a professional and all that kind of crap. That's fine. But my point is, he's a leader, and people might not think that's important, but I think it's important. I think the strength, and I've been a Nick Serianni fan. I think anybody who listens to the show knows that. I've been a Nick Serianni fan. And I think it's the intangible stuff, the CEO coach, how he takes control of the whole team. That to me is a strength as a coach, essentially leadership.
Yeah.
Getting everybody on the same page. This ain't leadership.
And that's where the big question with Serianni. It's okay, he doesn't call the plays. So what is his impact as to why this team has success? The default answer is he's got to be a great leader. He's got to be the guy who motivates that team because he doesn't call the plays. Now, does he have a hand in the game plan? And does he? Sure, of course, but that's all part of being the leader. But now you're starting to see a team that is losing 3 games in a row. And it doesn't feel like a 3-game losing streak where you're like, it's the ups and downs of a long season. This looks like the bubble has been waiting to burst, and now it's the hole's open, and they can't get the duct tape and spackle because they've tried that. Shaq Leonard, Kevin Byard, Bradley Roby. Let me go get 30-year-old guy and try to get him to help, and they're not helping.
Here's where I'm with you, John, because the decision and the enactment thereafter is twofold. Number one, did Sean Desai deserve to be replaced? Maybe. They're pretty damn bad. They were bad. Yeah. I can't say, of course he was god awful. They were 10-3. Okay. Yeah. Most of it because of the offense. Desai's side of the ball wasn't holding up his end of the bargain. But again, you got to grade on a curve because how he put many more resources into offense than defense during its offseason. So all those things put together into one deserve to be. Maybe. I'm sorry. I can't commit. I'm going to sit squarely on top of the fence on this one. But here's the one you can't argue. Let's lie to everybody. Let's blow them out. Tell the players, have a practice, which John and I sat here going, oh, can you believe they're having a practice? Putting the pads on? They're making Jody's day. All Jody ever talks about is no practice, no practice. They collectively bargained it away. How the hell are you ever going to get better? How are you going to get through those Sidney Brown startup costs in a walkthrough? They're practicing. Well, they did so for a reason, because they had to work in Matt Patricia. And oh, by the way, we're not telling anybody till Sunday. If the decision was made on Tuesday and it doesn't leak out till Sunday, Jay Glazer on Fox, they did a pretty good job of keeping it in-house.
Yeah, they did a real good
you're
job.
asking every single one of your players to keep his mouth shut. And they're worried about not saying anything. John was trying to give Jalen a bit of a pass earlier. He just lost his mind for a second because he never gives you anything. Well, he did. You and I agree, Mike. He kind of gave us something, maybe by accident, but he did. You're asking the entire team to, if anybody talks to them, lie about the fact that Matt Patricia is now the defensive coordinator. That's not leadership. John said it. He is 100% right. His job is the leadership of this team. You've lost 2 in a row. You're getting on a cross-country flight. Your quarterback is sick, so you don't even know if he's going to play. Your cornerback had to get his knee scoped, so you got to replace him. And these guys are all worrying and wondering about, oh, shit, I can't say anything about Matt Patricia. Matt Patricia taking over, but I can't say anything because the coach has said we can get a competitive advantage by not telling anybody ahead of time. That's where he just absolutely drops the ball for me, John. The whole the cover up is what it is, and it's not
cover up is always worse than the crime.
Correct.
Yeah, so I agree with that part. But I even go back to Sean Desai. We could argue, Jody, at 10-1, we had this discussion a bunch, and I've had it with you as well, Mike. I would say, people would talk all year. Well, who's doing the better job as a first-year coordinator? And I was in the minority. I would lean towards, I think Brian Johnson was slightly ahead of Sean Desai. Slightly ahead. Most people disagreed with me for the majority of that 10.
Because of grading on a curve.
Yeah. And most people thought he was doing a good job. Now, partially because they hated the former defensive coordinator, who they also wanted fired. So the bottom line is they always want the coordinator fired. That doesn't mean you react to it. Then it came. Now, let's be honest. They were embarrassing against Buffalo defensively, against San Francisco, against Dallas. Those are maybe the 3 best offensive teams in football. Maybe you can throw the Eagles when they're playing well, but they're not playing well.
Yeah, but
maybe the best 3 offensive teams.
You got to put Miami in there too, and they actually
all right
against Miami.
You can put Miami, but 3 of the best. All right, how's that? 3 of the best offensive teams in football. Now, and I said this on Mike's show yesterday. If Buffalo was in week 3 and Dallas was in week 7. And these performances, obviously, they played Dallas twice. And then San Francisco was in week 13. And they were split. He'd still be the defensive coordinator.
I agree with that.
This is so overreactionary. And an indication he is listening to the people he claims he doesn't listen to. And the people that want somebody's head on a stick. And the bottom line was that is you brought up Dana Bible. If you can go back in the history of this organization. Now, people do revisionist history with Frank Reich and Shane Steichen. Mike Rowe, Pat Shermer, Marty, Brad Childress, Rod Dowhauer, Dana Bible. They want everybody fired. It's baked into it. You got to let the guy grow. Now, the only exception to that is
unless it's
if there was a dust up, if he's didn't listen to the head coach, if there's some kind of behind the scenes personality issue. yeah, then you start talking about things going in. Then maybe you have to fire somebody. That ain't Sean Desai. Nobody believes that for a second. Um, Boy, I just thought it was they for 32 consecutive weeks, they've had the best record or tied for the best record in football. And they panic in week 33. I just can't wrap my head around it, guys. I cannot wrap my head around it.
I can, because they did it.
Yeah, quite.
Whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent, they did it. And
that's why. That's why it screams a little bit of a panic situation, and it looks as if they're telling us what I said earlier, which is we've had these issues. It's bursting so much that we got to do something drastic to try to stop it, because we've been trying to duct tape and spackle it together, and it didn't work. So now we've got to do something major, and that's change the coordinator. And then you go back to the comment about the commitment. I don't know what kind of relationship Jalen Hurts had with Sean Desai. Maybe he thinks his guy got screwed, and saying we don't have commitment issues. You didn't give this guy a chance. You fired him and then made us all shut up about it during the week.
Mike, I got a very specific question for you. Jalen Hurts in relationships. You said earlier the quarterback is just not the same as he was last year. The offensive line 4 out of 5, same 2 receivers, tight end, swap out Swift for Miles. It's a change, but not a massive change. Why is the offense not as good as last year? Yeah, the quarterback's not playing as well. He has regressed. Can he flip it really quick and get back that? Hope so, but we don't know. But some people questioning his relationship with 2 specific people. One is A.J. Brown, who is supposedly his best bud, Godfather's kid, all those other things. Before he ever got here, before they became teammates, they were boys. And that, from time to time you go, why is he forcing it to AJ? Why is he is the relationship between those two having an ill effect on it? Shoot, Brown came out after the game and said, stop with this homeboy stuff. The ball was supposed to come to me on the forced pass down the sideline. I was the number 1 read. Every once in a while, I'm a decoy. Why are you guys getting on Jalen's case, my case for this? So he was very defensive about it. The other relationship is the quarterback and the offensive coordinator, which was supposed to be a plus. That they've known each other since Jalen was knee-high to a Volkswagen. Maybe they're too tight. Maybe they're too close. Maybe the offensive coordinator can't get on the quarterback's case and get in his kitchen when he needs to because they're that close. Do you have any worries, Mike Gill, about the relationship between AJ and his star wide receiver and AJ and his longtime family friend offensive coordinator?
The coordinator one is interesting. The suggestion that you can't coach him hard enough because they're so close, so that he doesn't feel comfortable doing it. I think that would be the one. Because look, the AJ Brown, you go through these things all the time. Sometimes you don't even like players that you play with. But when you're the coach and you have that type of relationship, and you don't know how far over the line you can go. Now, maybe he coaches them really hard. We haven't heard what their coaching relationship is like here. But we've seen that type of relationship change the quarterback here in the past, where DeFilippo was a guy who coached Wentz very hard, and the next guys, not so much. And, a lot of people thought that went into Carson's regression. Did it? I don't know. Carson had a lot of injury problems. I think that helped his play deteriorate at a very rapid pace. Yep. He just wasn't the same player after the injuries. The guy that they drafted was not the same physically down the road. And part of his ability to play at the level he did was his physicality, his ability to run. When you took that away from him, he was just a guy inaccurate, throwing the ball around. So the coaching aspect of it for Hurts is interesting, because is Brian Johnson pointing out his flaws and telling him what he's doing wrong? And is he doing it in a way that Hurts is processing it? It seems that everywhere he's gone, he's had these tough coaches on him. Does he finally have that? It kind of lines up weird because you hate to bring up his contract, but it's finally worked out in his life where he has been the underdog. He's been coached hard. He had his dad. And I finally don't have any of that. I got the money. I got the starting job. No one's taking it from me. I finally don't have to be the underdog. And you hate to see that be the story if, in fact, it is. Because one of the reasons why, I thought the Eagles were in a horrible spot having to pay him that deal. You had 2 seasons to read. One was very mediocre. The other one was almost an MVP. You weren't allowed to pay him in the middle and say, well, you only did this 1 year and you did that 1 year, so I'll pay you in the middle. You had to pick one. You had to let him keep playing on the mediocre deal, or you had to pay him to be the great guy. You couldn't say, we want to see more. So you picked the great one. And now he has that deal based on that. And I said, you know what? This guy, his whole life, all he's done is work hard. He's worked hard. That's been his narrative. Whenever you asked anybody about him, it wasn't, man, he's so accurate. Man, he's got a great arm. Man, he makes all the right reads. He's the best leader I've ever been around. So why would you question that he would not work as hard? And I'm not questioning that. That's why I think the deal that he got, I wasn't all that worried about. And not that I'm saying I'm about it, but is all these things now, we're all human. Has it all caught up to him that, man, I'm making $215 million. I got the starting job. What more am I fighting for if this is all the narrative about me leading into this? So I hope that's not where he is. If the coach is also now enabling that mindset. The coach is the guy who says, come on, man, just because you got your stuff doesn't mean you have to quit working as hard.
Yeah.
And I don't work. And you wonder.
At Mike Gill show.
Wonder, I talked about with Carson Wentz, are these injuries starting to hit him a little bit where it is lessening his play?
Yeah, I would think that more than anything else. At Mike Gill show on Twitter, X, 97.3, the Sports Bash, all for the rest of the year, though. Is that correct?
You're done, Gill? Done for 2023? Yeah,
well, we got to laugh.
Yep, I'll be back January 2nd.
January 2nd. Tell Josh, I don't know if I'm going to be there. I think Nick Serianni is going to talk at 3:15 today. We'll see. We still don't have the schedule. But I will say about Brian Johnson before you go, people forget the difference because I've heard the Press Taylor comparisons a lot. One, Press is a very good coach, and he's an example of the nonsensical scapegoating of this organization when you don't reach expectations. So I think part of it is the fan base here thinks he was a really bad coach. He's proven since he's not. And by the way, the Eagles told you for years, hey, this guy's a rising star. And then when they needed a scapegoat, they kick him in the butt on his way out the building. So part of that is crap. And then Jalen Hurts, all anybody talks about, son of a coach, loves hard coaching. Nick Serianni yells about him. All of a sudden, you can't yell at him. I don't buy that for a second. I think there's a lot of issues with this team, but it's not because Jalen Hurts can't be coached hard by Brian Johnson or anybody else for that matter.
No, but Brian Johnson is a guy unto himself. Their relationship is their relationship. Father-son is one thing. Head coach, quarterback is another thing. Father's former player, now you're offensive coordinator. You don't, John, if you don't know, sure as hell, Gill and I don't know, but we don't see enough of how Jaylen and the offense coordinator interact to know for sure how that relationship goes. People
always want the coordinator fired in this town. Always.
I didn't call for his head. I just
I'm not talking about you.
We're contemplating. We're wondering about.
A lot of the fans who want Sean Desai gone, Brian Johnson gone, Jonathan Gannon gone, everybody down the Dana Bible who Mike Gill brought up and probably should have been gone. Sometimes they should be gone. Everybody. Doesn't matter who it is. You're going to want the next guy fired. So be very wary of that.
That's very true. All right, Mike Gill, thank you very much for coming on. Enjoy your downtime, brother. Have a happy holiday. That's my
See you, everybody.
on Birds 365. I think his speaker was on a little bit delayed today. I don't know.
I think we got a lag when he goes away from the tile man. So wherever he usually does it, then we get a lag.
And we didn't even ask Gill about his T-shirt. More importantly, will the bathroom be done by the time Mike Gill returns here to Birds 365? All right, McDonald McMullen, quickie timeout. We're running late. We are a mere 12 minutes away from being joined by Chris Franklin from NJ.com here on Birds 365.